If you like what you watch, then don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Twitter for the latest updates on The More Show. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel for new weekly television and radio shows.
Alan, thank you so much for joining us
Thanks
today.
very much
It's a complete
indeed.
pleasure to have you on.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
Alan, for the public out there who's never heard of yourself before or your work, so just tell us a bit about who Alan is.
The reason I began looking into these subjects was because in 1973 I had a UFO encounter which stimulated me to start looking at these particular subjects.
Right.
And strangely enough, it was as I was returning from my confirmation into the church. So initially I started looking into ufology, but then really into the early 90s I began to look at more spiritual side to this, to the nature of reality. I went to a College of Psychic Studies in London.
Yeah.
And then at that time also, in the early 90s, is when the crop formations were starting to become more elaborate. Clearly there was some sort of message going on there. This is beyond the hoaxing, this is to sort of the genuine formations.
Right.
And so that took me down the path of looking into those as well.
Okay.
Which I felt was an important sort of area.
So, an important area of your work is the crop formations, and what are crop circles in your opinion?
They began in the late 80s with the simple circles and the circles with rings. So that was at the time when people could either take them or not,
Yes.
whether it was either hoaxed or things like that, wind damage. But really in the early 90s, 91 onwards, is when they started to become formations and become much more complex, the geometry and the mathematics. And also from 91 onwards is when true scientific research began looking into them. This is using, professional scientific consultants, biophysicists, mineralogists, chemists, people like that. And what they found is that the genuine formations, these are again not the ones that are hoaxed.
No.
The crop goes through a change in its cellular structure. So in other words, they believe it's being superheated up to probably 800 degrees C in a fraction of a second. So the crop becomes, any moisture within the crop turns to steam, and then these images can be downloaded probably in a matter of several seconds, which is why you also actually have anomalies that you won't normally see through ropes and planks of wood, where the crop can actually be bent at a 90-degree angle from the node or the knuckle of the crop, actually on the stem of the crop, sometimes about a foot off the ground.
Okay, so you're saying this is scientifically proven that these are not hoaxed, some of the ones that you've investigated?
I would say that, yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
some of them, yeah.
How does a hoaxer perform a crop circle formation?
Well, obviously hoaxing, which again I don't generally really want to talk about because there's a much bigger issue going on here. But naturally enough, some farmers are paid. They have to plot out the formation, use the ropes, the planks of wood, things like that. But what you'll find is the genuine formations, some of which you'll see hopefully as we go through.
Yes, we will. We'll have a look at those.
Are so staggeringly complex in their geometry and their mathematics. Down to the millimetre.
Okay.
But beyond that, some of the messages that are within them is really important to look at.
Absolutely. So where do they generally happen?
They've happened all over the world, 42 different countries all over the world. But 80% of the volume, but also the complexity of formations appears in an area in sort of southern Britain. Although they're appearing in different mediums as well, not just crop, they've even been seen in tops of trees where the trees are bent at a 90-degree angle in the tops of the trees, and grass and even sand.
Why that particular place in England? Why Wiltshire?
Yeah. That question is probably the most frequently asked, and I think that there are certain people say that it's they're linked into the ley lines, the sort of the energies that the energy within the ley lines is utilised as part of the creative process.
Yes.
But also I think that there has to be a location where, because this is a phenomenon the genuine phenomena that needs to be studied as a way of, I think, helping people to wake up to the fact that there's something big going on here. I think by having a general location, exactly as has happened, is people travel from all over the world and come to this particular location.
So obviously it's changed the community where this is taking place.
Absolutely, yeah.
What, spiritually, do you think? Or?
Yeah, I think so. I think that for most people, if they start looking at one reality, in this case crop formations, it will lead to ufology, UFO interactions, to spiritual awakening, obviously to concern for the planet, the environmental issues as well.
So just before we go to the pictures, let's just really sum up what crop circles are to you. They are, for example?
I think in a big overview of the whole thing, because this is a long-term process. It's not just, one season. This is late 80s through to now, 2011. They are a form of awakening. They're giving a message to people so that they can start to realise that something's happening and we're possibly in a major time of change. And that is one form of communicating with people that that people can actually visit and see.
Well, we'll get into what you think they are or where you think they come from a bit later on. But let's just have a look at the first picture that you've brought with us. And we'll just look at the screen. So just describe to the audience, what are they seeing there?
This is a huge formation. As I say, there are many. There's tens of thousands over the years. But this one appeared on the 13th of August 2001 at a place called Milk Hill, which is on top of a hill, at a place where many people are there in the summer keeping an eye on this. It appeared basically during the middle of the night. There's over 400 circles within that formation. It's like a six-fold spiralling geometry.
Yes.
In fact, the media, the mainstream media, were quite complimentary about this, because I think they realised that you couldn't create that in just an hour and a half or 2 hours of darkness.
When you say mainstream media, I mean how well was publicised was this? Are we talking about just local paper?
No, mainstream media, but also local as well.
So national,
national, And because what they worked out was, because there's over 400 circles with that, that you would have to create each one of those circles within about 30 seconds to create that many circles. And when you actually look at the size, it's hard to explain, but each circle is absolutely massive on its own. But when you put it all together, it's 800 feet across. It's incredibly complex.
So, have you spoke to the owner of that field at all?
Obviously, I've spoken to many researchers that are there. I mean, the people within that area, it's near a place called Alton Barnes in Wiltshire, and where many of the main formations appear. Make no mistake, the farmers in that area have said, be assured, UFOs are seen in this area. And they also know that because at the end of the season, when this one appeared, they're often out harvesting the field late at night with lights and things like that. They'll go to a field where they know there's nothing, and then suddenly they'll come across a massive
So are we
field.
talking about this flash of the lights in the night time they see? Or I mean, how does that just appear like that? I mean,
again, there are UFOs have been seen, structured craft. Balls of light is probably the most prolific form of interaction, where balls of light are seen flying around the field. They're either part of observational technology or the creative technology, and they're often seen going into formations and then flying out. Many people have seen them. I've taken photographs of them.
Let's just go to the next picture here as well. So we just look at the next one that we've got, and just describe what we're seeing here for the audience.
This is over a 3-year journey that started to show that the formations, not only geometry and mathematics, were starting to show that there was a SETI-like communication. I mean, we're always told that radio telescopes around the world, which is run by SETI, which of course is run by NASA, which is run by the military, have not received a communication from space. Therefore, in a way, saying there is no advanced intelligence out there using radio communication. But over a 3-year period, culminating with this particular formation at Crabwood in Wiltshire, it was showing that there was this SETI communication, basically, that this actually appeared below a load of microwave antennas, whereas the year before the ones were appearing next to a radio telescope. And SETI look in the microwave spectrum as well as the radio spectrum. But what's important about this is it steps it up to beyond binary to like 3-dimensional, where you have like a photographic image. But also the disc that this being is holding up.
That's quite important, that, isn't it?
And it's incredibly complex. We haven't got enough time really to go into it. But it actually is like a CD disc, and it has information on it that relates to. I can tell you if you want.
Yeah, please do.
It was translated using the ASCII code in the computer, And it's a spiral that's about a mile in length. You'd have a job to even create this on a computer, let alone a sloping field as it is.
So sloping conditions.
Sloping conditions. Yeah. The dark area is a standing crop, the light area is a laid crop, and they all point into the centre wherever you are within that mile-long spiral. Okay. But when this is translated, supposedly it says this. It says, "Beware the bearers of false gifts and their broken promises. Much pain, but still time. Believe, there is good out there. We oppose deception, conduit closing." Now these are really powerful words because, you know, I know this is heavy stuff, but the more you look into this subject, there are many people who believe that these beings that are depicted here, which is a grey extraterrestrial, some people feel that they are here to help us as we're going through these environmental and technological changes. Other people feel that those beings are not here to help us, and they are possibly taking from the human race and manipulating us from behind the scenes, and therefore not to be trusted, as in the message.
What do you feel?
Receiver. The latter. I personally, after decades of research on this subject, I would not trust those particular beings. But there are many, and it's a very complex subject, involving negatives, observers, and sort of benign, benevolent beings as well, which is important to know.
Who interpreted this message?
These were some of the researchers that were studying this, guys that understood that using the sort of the zeros and ones. I don't understand myself how you actually do it, but using the ASCII code in the computer. So they put that in like a disk, and it actually came up once they'd inputted the zeros and ones. It came up with that translation.
I mean, it's an incredible picture, and some viewers are going to look at that and say, "Well, surely that's got to be man that did that." How, you know, to think outside the box. I mean, it's pretty big what you're suggesting, isn't it?
Remember, it doesn't also run with the tram lines. It's running oblique to the tram lines. The image, even the sort of the right cheek is dark, which again I don't really know how you actually do that within the formation, like the shadowing effect. That alone is impressive, but it's the disc, and this appeared around about the 25th anniversary of the Voyager probe, the one that went up that had that
tied in with
disc
that
on board, with music playing, people speaking, etc. That, I don't think anyone could create, honestly. A spiral that flows in an anti-clockwise direction from the middle all the way out, that's a mile long, with depressed crop, all pointing to the middle, that becomes a message. No.
Okay, well, let's just move on to the next picture quickly. Okay. We'll have a look at this. And, okay, let's... what we're seeing there, it looks like some sort of Mayan graphics, is it, or something?
Yeah. The more you look into what I'd call the genuine formations, not only you've got geometry and mathematics, but you also have sort of messages that particularly relate to the Mayan prophecies, which are stating that there's a sort of a time of transition coming up. Obviously the date is the 21st of December 2012, but I think a transition point into a more spiritual future. And many of the formations actually have information within them. This, there's two here, they were translated by experts in Mayan, and when Jaime Maussan, who's one of the major researchers in Mexico, who has been looking into the UFO interactions that have been happening in Mexico, which is pretty incredible, they translated these, and they relate to, one of these formations relates to the annular eclipse of the 20th of May 2012 and the transit of Venus over the Sun on the 20th of 12. That's not this particular image actually, but the other one. And also a possible bridge between the different peoples of the world, religions and people. This one here actually has information that relates to the return of Quetzalcoatl, the return of the Messiah, and also the words are within it saying Christ, Messiah, catastrophe, eclipse, life and God, which are really powerful words.
Right, and is that linking to Christianity or anything, or
no,
or any other religion?
Well, not institutionalised religion, but the fact that I think we are at a major time of change where the people of the world are going to soon recognise that there is something big going on, and that's where the crop formations are giving people a heads up or a starter to look into that. But it will lead to, the more people globally start to realise that UFOs and ETs exist, which they do, people will then start to question their faith, and this is why this is really important. It actually leads towards faith once you go beyond ufology.
Can you have faith and still believe in ETs?
Absolutely, yeah. My faith has definitely increased since I've looked into this subject.
Do you think it would be a problem to religions out there if there was a, unquestionable reality that these exist? There's some sort of interdimensional beings, or?
Yes and no. No, in the sense that since 1997 onwards, Monsignor Carrara-Balducci, who was a leading theologian at the Vatican, has been speaking out, or was speaking out openly, particularly in Italian media, about the fact that UFOs and ETs exist, and that he was on a Vatican commission looking into that reality. Just in 2009, there was a big meeting at the Vatican where they were looking at exobiology, and they were discussing the fact that life is out there. They certainly have a microbiological level, but behind the scenes, I'm sure they were discussing some of the UFO and ET reality as well. The head of the Vatican Observatory has openly spoken and said that the existence of intelligent extraterrestrials does not pose a problem for Catholic theology. But there are many people, of course, within fundamental within religions who will struggle with that reality. Okay, well, what we'll do after the break, I want to get back into the subject of the religion. I want to get back into 2012 because I think we need to touch on that still, don't we? And we've got so much more to talk about. So, we're going to take a break there. So it's time for a break now, but Alan's staying with us, so don't go anywhere.
Visit themoreshow.co.uk/shop to purchase products and services from your favourite past guests. If you're new to this site, you can also catch up on the previous television and radio shows through YouTube and the More Show website.
Welcome back. I'm joined by writer and researcher Alan Foster. Now, Alan, just before the air break there, we were talking about 2012, so I just want to finish off on that first. So in your opinion then, 2012 is going to be a conscious shift, but would you say 2012 is happening already? I mean, are we so fixated on a date?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I do believe we are in that time now. Now, you could say, again, in many of the prophecies, that whether you call this a time of revelation, which is a revealing, I think it is a lead-up time, exactly. Yeah. And it wasn't that long ago, only 5 or 10 years ago, when many of these prophecies were speaking about the fact that we're going to go through major earth changes and a sort of a more cosmic consciousness change. Where you become aware, it's not just a spiritual consciousness, but actually aware of the universe. That is happening all over the world. There are people speaking out about the UFO reality all over the world, from many of the astronauts that that people know, from people in military and government speaking out now, acknowledging this. The crop formations is part of that as well. And so I think that what's happening is it's an opportunity for people to wake up. If they choose to, and that's what this is about. It's entirely up to the individual whether they do or whether they don't.
You're not saying this. You have to accept this truth. This is your truth, isn't it? And you're just presenting it in a way that, obviously, with the way your research works, and it sort of all tallies together.
It does. The more you, I think, the more you look in one area, it does lead or overlap to another
links,
area.
Doesn't it? It seems to link, So
and I think because in truth, everything is part of reality.
Everything's connected.
Everything is connected anyway.
Okay. So this picture of the cross, let's just have that on the screen there. Now, just explain when this was taken.
That was taken on the 15th of August 2008 near Etchelhampton, not far from Devizes in Wiltshire. It's an incredibly beautiful formation. It's like a Celtic crucifix. It's precise, basically, to the millimetre. When it was first appeared, the crop was standing about a foot off the ground. It was really fluffy, and actually, as you can see, it looks like laser cut. It's not in line with the tram lines where the tractors spray the crop. It's oblique to that. It's 800 feet in length by 600 feet in width. That's in fact, that's the equivalent of about 2.5 football pitches in length. It's a huge formation. There's another shot as well that shows a sort of an elongated version of it in the landscape, and really beautiful. The thing is, the more again you look at these formations, this shot here, all the religions have been covered as well. This is not either one religion or another religion. To me, the crop formations are trying to help everybody wake up globally. It's like a bridge-making process for people to look at these bigger realities.
So just briefly then, what does this cross mean to you? How do you interpret that?
What is incredible about this is that it points to the direction of 222 degrees, which again, without getting too heavy, in numerology, that relates to a cosmic Christ consciousness, that number.
Okay.
So you're already talking about Christ and consciousness within a formation that looks like a crucifix.
Yes.
But it actually appeared at the very same time as there was a large conference being held in Ohio in the States on the Turin shroud. So the very weekend that this appeared, there were some of the major researchers, the scientific researchers that looked into the shroud, part of the STURP team, were holding a conference.
Yeah.
So you have this Christ aspect, but also linking in with the Turin shroud as well.
So how does Christ work into your work? Who was Jesus to you?
I believe Christ was an aspect of God that came to earth to try and speak the truth. And which he did, and showed the incredible things that he was able to achieve, as well as these subjects have also studied the Turin shroud for many, many years, decades. And the science now, and most people, believe that, as with all these subjects, is that the shroud, for instance, was a medieval hoax. But all the science now has shown that the carbon dating was flawed, that without going into it in great depth, we haven't got the time. But with that and another cloth called the Sudarium, when you put the two together, the history, the pathology, the forensics, all of the pollens, everything about the shroud shows that the image that's on the shroud was created through a flash of light, basically, that changed just the topmost molecular structure of the topmost fibrils without cementing. So it's like an image that's been created through a flash of light, which of course basically shows that the resurrection was a reality.
So what's the connection between the Christ energy and the ET sort of connection?
I think what it is that the time that we're in is this major time of transformation.
This 2012.
2012, leading up to 2012 and possibly beyond.
Okay.
That we need to wake up to the fact that there is much more to life on Earth, but also within the universe as well. So the more you understand that, and then you realise there are beings that have come to Earth to try and help us throughout. And it could be Christ, it could be Buddha, it could be Muhammad, different, advanced beings that have tried to speak the words of truth. And we are at a time now where I think it's for the people of the world to wake up to that reality. It's not to follow or deify. It's that each individual soul on Earth can wake up to the fact that something big is going on here.
Okay, so why come all the way to planet Earth just to make pictures in the ground?
I think we've always had interactions with beings from the heavens. If you look throughout history, even Genesis 6 in the Old Testament speaks about the fact that the sons of the gods married the daughters of men and had offspring with them.
It does indeed.
Clearly we've had interactions with, or we've been possibly manipulated, if you will, throughout the whole of our history by advanced beings. Therefore, we are interlinked with them, whether we realise it or not. The same also goes for the spirit, which I believe we are a spirit incarnate and have many lives. So this is a long-term process that's been going on a long period of time. And I think because this is a big point of transition, there are many beings that are here to try and help us and watch us as we go through that
So
change.
not just one race coming here, many?
No. In 1964, the assessment document, which was a document held by the top brass, only those with the need to know.
Government,
this was at SHAPE headquarters in Paris and then Belgium. They already knew of 12 different races interacting with the human race back in 1964. Some were negative, others were observers, and thirdly there were those that were more benign, benevolent, that wanted to help us evolve, probably in a more spiritual direction. And this is back in the 60s, they knew about this, so a lot more has changed.
So how do you think they're answering some of our messages in a sense?
Definitely. Yeah, I mentioned earlier, very briefly, the SETI messages that have gone within the crop formation.
Yes.
Again, it's by them appearing in the fields of the world, people can actually access them. It's not hidden away through the radio telescopes, which is run by SETI and NASA and military. It means that everybody can go and look at these if they wish and realise that something's happening here.
Is there a secret communication going on then between our governments of the world and whoever these are?
That is probably one of the most complex questions because there is multiple layers of answers to that. It's very clear that in 1947 at Roswell, New Mexico, a UFO crashed and bodies were retrieved. So from July 47, and no doubt before, but particularly at that time, it became very clear that UFOs and ETs exist. That information went around the world, and then of course we debunked quickly that it was just a weather balloon. But there's at least 600 first, second and third hand eyewitnesses that have spoken out about that now. They know, they've spoken about their own personal experiences.
That's
of
right.
that.
I've interviewed people with that. Yeah.
So the governments clearly are aware of it, and they have been, as this process has continued up to this day.
Right.
Certain people, but it's only on a need-to-know basis.
Yeah.
Even if you're a president or a prime minister, it doesn't mean to say you actually know about this subject.
So who does know? Is it compartmentalised?
Yes.
Or?
Yeah.
And what compartment? Are we talking about, Navy, who
Well, funny enough, the Navy were very much, on many of the documents, the classified documents that have been released, the Navy are quite high on that level. But, there's different departments, of course. It's a huge, complex subject. MJ12, you've heard of course.
I've heard of these secret documents.
Supposedly
secret.
Yeah. There was a group that initially, because they wanted to not only cover this up, but monitor it. So you have different compartmentalised groups.
But why are these beings, whoever they are, coming to the planet now? What's so important about planet Earth?
Because I think this is the time where we basically have an opportunity to go back into the universe. It is our birthright to be aware of cosmic reality, and we have an opportunity, particularly on a spiritual level, to evolve and to be released out of an environment that is trapping us and not allowing us to grow and evolve through various means, whether it's manipulation in educational media, whether it's government or military control, however dark you want to get in the conspiracy level. I think there's a point that we're coming to now that's been known about for a long period of time where we have the chance to evolve.
Do you think, though, that mainstream religions would be accepting of your work? Initially, if they've done no research into the subject, which of course most people within religion haven't, because they're only following the institutionalised religion. No, because we're taught that there's no such thing as ETs. In many cases, no such thing as reincarnation, whatever. But for those that have studied it, and as I say, there's a Vatican Commission that's been looking into this back since the 90s. They acknowledge that UFOs and ETs exist. This is the Vatican. Even Pope John Paul II himself sent his blessings to a large UFO conference that was being held in Acapulco, Mexico, as a way of letting them know that he knows that this is real, but he just can't necessarily talk about it in the open media. The Vatican have been investigating?
Yes, absolutely.
They've got their own astronomy?
They have the Vatican Observatory in Tucson, Arizona. And for many years now, they've been saying that the Vatican and the Catholic religion have no problem with intelligent extraterrestrials, or the existence of intelligent extraterrestrials. But I think that is because they know they're here already. So they have to start addressing that. At the moment, behind the scenes, I think they're addressing it. But soon, once this starts coming out globally, and it will, it's going to be a flurry of people trying to decide how they deal with this within their own context.
But why the sudden release of documentation from the UK MOD and other governments like the FBI have started releasing documentation now because it was on Yahoo just recently?
It's got to be right then. You would say it's because they realise that we are at a time when this is coming out. And I think what it is that there's a huge movement. The Exopolitics Institute is another group of people, highly professional people around the world, pushing for disclosure. The disclosure movement, which began in 2001, with high-level military, government, corporate and scientific people speaking out at the National Press Club in Washington, DC, in front of the world's media, including BBC, about their own personal experiences of UFOs, ETs, and their awareness of back-engineered technology from UFOs that has been seeded into mainstream industry through government contracting programs. There's so many people speaking out now, including the astronauts that people know, cosmonauts, people from the highest of levels. I think what it is that the governments and the intelligence agencies realise they can't hold on to this for much longer.
No.
So I think they're doing a slow release themselves so that they can still try and maintain control of this. But I think we are running out of time, really.
What are they actually trying to protect us from? If there's obviously there's a truth out there somewhere, like the X-Files would say, what are they protecting us from? Or are they? Is it their interest?
Yeah, I think that there are several ways of answering that. First is to say, and this is the usual chestnut that's put out there, is that in 1939, the War of the Worlds radio show that went out in America, some people ran into the streets sort of screaming because they thought it was actually happening.
Yes.
It's said that the governments are concerned that the people of the world would panic if they know about this subject. So if you're kind, you'll say they're doing that for us. And they've done a slow release, including movies like Close Encounters of the Third Kind in '77, E.T. and onwards, to acquaint us with this reality. The truth is that they've been controlling it and manipulating it and denying the human race the truth through cleverly use of debunking and misinformation, etc. So they've been withholding this, and I think that it's the last attempt now to still hold on to this before this becomes global.
So if they're holding on to information, and in your opinion, you think Roswell was a real incident,
Absolutely.
that there were recovered bodies, recovered UFO technology. Where's that technology gone?
Clearly, I mean, obviously you can say Area 51, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, places like that. I've spoken to Colonel Jesse Marcel Jr., who's the son of the colonel who was the guy that first went to the debris, that spoke out in front of the media and said that he had retrieved, or they had retrieved, metallic fragments that had very unusual properties. And then, of course, he had to be photographed with the weather balloon debris so that they'd do the debunk. But his son was one of those people, along with many others, who saw metallic debris from that craft. And he said it was like, some of it, there were I-beams with different writing on it, but some of it was like tin foil, like you'd have for baking. And you could fold it up like you would, wad it up in your hand, expect it to be sort of all crunched up, put it on the table, and actually would unfurl back into its original shape. And yet they couldn't cut it with diamond drills and saws. So this was highly advanced.
It's
technology.
incredible, but seeing is believing, and when people have got no actual physical proof, it's very difficult for them to get their heads around an incident took place, and these people are telling the truth.
I know. All you can do, and this is what I think people are being guided to do, and the crop formations are part of that, is look yourself. If you are going to take information only from mainstream, and no disrespect, but and the education systems, you'll never truly find out what's going on here. If you, as an individual soul, wherever you are, whatever country, whatever belief structure, start looking, you will be given opportunity to find the answers. And there's more than enough information now to prove that UFOs and ETs exist. That is not the debate anymore. The debate is, why are we not being told about it?
And just one very quick key thing, in your opinion, what are they trying to say, very quickly?
They're trying to say, wake up, the universe is full of life. You have an opportunity to see that universe if you wish, and now is that time, so start looking.
The last question I want to ask you, and just, which is the most important question that ties up with all your work really, is what is a key issue that with these crop circles, the information that the ETs, or whoever they are, is trying to get to the population of the world?
I think they're trying to say, you need to make the effort yourself to look into this, because it is you that are accountable for your own existence and what is about to happen. So people need to look at this and many other subjects. It's out there. If you make the effort to look, you will find that something big is going on. Crop formations, UFO reality, spiritual reality, and a massive change on Earth which is coming up.
Absolutely,
so,
absolutely.
Every person needs to try and look and find what's going on.
Well, Alan, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on.
Thank you very much.
For any information on Alan, visit my website, themoreshow.co.uk. Stay tuned, as after the break I'll be joined by Dr. Peter Fenwick.
If you like what you watch, then don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Twitter for the latest updates on The More Show. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel for new weekly television and radio shows.